G'day, I'm Paul. Mazda is using the pent-up demand for dual cab utes to come up with new models. And this is the latest. It is the new top specification. Well, it sits beneath the Thunder, which is the top spec, but it's kind of like an off-road focused version. This is called the BT-50 SP, and it's got some special accessories fitted to it, which I'll run through later on. This is priced at a little over $65,000, but if that's too expensive, the entire range kicks off at just under 40 grand. This competes with things like the Ford Ranger, the Toyota Hilux, and the Isuzu D-Max, which is what it's based off. Today we're going to do a detailed review of this car, so if you do want to skip ahead to other parts of the review, you can use the time codes on the screen, or if you're on YouTube, scroll down and use the chapters below. And if you want to help us grow, please subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon as well, because that'll tell you every single time we review these top spec models. Righto, let's talk exterior. So you've got 7 colours to pick from, and they're all free of charge, which is great news. So Mazda shares a platform for the BT-50 with the new Isuzu D-Max. They moved away from their relationship they had with Ford, and as a result of that, this looks fairly similar to the D-Max, but has its own Mazda design theory. I actually quite like the SP in terms of what they've done with the dark highlights. So you've got that big black grille here. Really moves away from that stylized chrome setup that they have on other BT-50 variants. Big Mazda logo up the top there, and then plenty of space in there for cooling. Over on the side here, you have a set of full LED headlights, and this section, which is normally chrome in the BT-50, has been blacked out as well. Down the bottom here, you have an indicator and also like a running light that's always on, and a fog light down there too. Around the side here, we have a set of 18-inch alloy wheels. The black design here continues, so it's all sort of blacked out on the wheel there. Got a decent set of highway terrain tyres here. Now, lurking behind here is an interesting suspension setup. So this is an aftermarket setup you can get as part of an accessory pack for the BT-50. I'll run through this in a bit more detail later on, but you can see it looks a whole lot more sophisticated than the standard suspension setup. This one also has the optional snorkel that is fitted as a factory accessory. Now up the top here, this is a gloss black setup. It's kind of similar to the D-Max X-Train, and that's what the SP mimics, both in terms of price and also in terms of the design as well. So this is Mazda's version of that top spec Isuzu ute. Up the top here, you've got an indicator built into that wing mirror, more of that black highlight up there too. Side steps down here. I have mentioned previously in our other ute reviews that I would like to see something bulkier on the side there. You've got black door handles, you've got a black sail plane here as well with BT-50 emblazoned on that. More of that wheel arch protection, and then come around to the back. Now around the back here, you've got a camera built into this section, more of that black highlight there. It is a little bit disappointing though that the tail lights are not full LED, just incandescent globes. 4x4 and BT-50, 3.5 ton braked towing capacity here with a 350 kilogram downbore weight. A step here to get into the back. Now run you through the tray as well. Feel that? I like the fact that there is a little bit of hydraulic action here to stop that slamming down. You've got this manual roller cover on the tray. That moves out of the way. You are introduced to the tray here, which has dimensions of a little over 1,550 mil of load length, just over 1,500 mil of load width, with a little over 1,100 mil between the wheel arches. Then if you look a little closer, you've got hooks here as well to tie down your contents, but no power outlet, which is a little bit disappointing. And then with the roller cover, you use this strap here to pull it back into position, and then away you go. The only downside is that manual roller cover robs you of a bit of space right up at the front of the tray. Now, what do you reckon about the BT-50 design here in the SP trim? I actually think it looks pretty good. I do like the chrome highlights on a standard BT-50, but this looks a little more aggressive, especially with the snorkel and stuff. It just looks like it's a bit of a go-anywhere ute. So let me know in the comments section below, what do you think of the design? Do you reckon the SP is the one to go for in the BT-50 range? So we are inside the BT-50. We will start off with the key. You've got the remote start function up the top there, lock, unlock, then a blank, and then on the back you have the Mazda logo. That sits in your pocket, and then once you're inside you have a push button start. So the SP, you can differentiate this from other variants in the BT-50 range because of the different color highlights. So you can see here it's split between the black, you get this sort of khaki colour, I think it is, maybe brown, khaki, greeny type thing, with soft padded sections on the centre console there, so for longer drives that will keep you nice and relaxed. Then on the seats as well, you can see the offset colours. I actually think it's a pretty cool looking setup, and it looks fairly premium, especially in this segment where you're used to these being very much workhorses. This actually feels nice and relaxing, and also feels like it's worth the money that you're spending on it as well. What about your touch points? So that is soft enough, and then soft on the door too. How soft are they? Well, we've tested the main surfaces in this cabin with our gyrometer. If you want to see how this car compares to other cars that we've tested before, have a look at the link in the description. Build quality, slightly wonky there, but for the most part, this all feels pretty good. Door slam. Sounds good. Let's talk about infotainment. So this shares an infotainment system with the Isuzu D-Max. That means you have a 9-inch colour touchscreen, has satellite navigation built into it. You've got shortcut buttons down there, but also can just use it as a touchscreen. In addition to that, you have AM, FM, DAB radio, and that's all plumbed through an 8-speaker sound system. Sound system's okay, it's really not too crash hot. In terms of smartphone mirroring, you have both Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Android Auto is wired. I'll show you what that looks like. So there we go, full screen integration. Not too bad in terms of responsiveness, just a slight bit laggy there. Apple CarPlay, now that is entirely wireless, not too bad in terms of the snappiness there as well. So yeah, big tick there. Love the fact that it is wireless because it means that you can just hop into the car and it's ready to roll. There is no wireless phone charging as standard. I think you can get it as an accessory, but that's probably something you need to think about because it does drain your battery a fair bit when you are using just wireless smartphone mirroring. There is also a screen ahead of the driver here. It's pretty basic, but it gives you your off-road controls, trip computer, and other critical safety functions. The great news as well is that Mazda has finally followed suit with Isuzu and allowed you to disable the lane nannies just by pushing and holding the steering wheel button here. You used to have to do that through the menus and you had to be stationary. It was not very good. So I'm glad that feature is finally here as well. Now, what about your safety tech? So you have autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian and cyclist detection. You have an auto dimming rear vision mirror, lane departure warning and a lane keeping assistant, radar cruise control, blind spot monitor built into the wing mirror. You have rear cross traffic alert. The other cool thing as well is that this comes with a center airbag. So that's now required for a 5-star safety rating, which this car also has. It prevents your front two occupants from hitting each other in a side impact. So it's good to see that it is standard here. In terms of parking, you have both front and rear parking sensors and a reverse view camera. I'll show you what that looks like. There it is there. So the quality is pretty good. The only thing I did notice is the camera is offset. So the center of your guidelines there isn't actually where the tow bar is. It's kind of a little over this way. So yeah, I don't know why they didn't just make those guidelines center to the vision as opposed to where the camera is. But anyway. Now, what about your practicality? And we'll start off with your connectivity. So beneath here, you have one USB outlet, one auxiliary port, then a 12-volt outlet as well. Now, it's interesting because your phone can live down there. I mentioned before, there's no wireless phone charging, and that seems like it would be the perfect spot for it. So phone fits in here easily as well. Then in terms of your coffee cup, watch this. It disappears immediately into that slot, never to be seen again. And then it is hard to get out. You run the risk of pulling the lid off as you do, so you've got to be super careful with that. Also slightly different to the D-Max, you don't have any cup holders in front of the air vents, so you really only have a couple of slots there to store your coffee. In terms of bottles, they fit nicely into there, and because it is such a deep slot, your bottle won't disappear too far. Fits inside the door as well. Try a big bottle too. No bingo there, but fits inside the door, which is good news. Other storage, so just near the driver's knee, you've got a little storage nook for coins and bits and pieces. Center console here, reasonably sized. 2 sets of glove boxes. So one down here, which is entirely consumed by the manual. You have another one just here, which is slightly more spacious. And finally, you have a sunglasses holder up the top. Moving on to comfort features. So you have dual zone automatic climate control up the front here. Quite like these buttons. They feel like they're metallic. They're probably plastic, but they look very nice and classy. You've also got heated seats for the front row. In terms of seat adjustment, you have electric adjustment for the driver's seat. You go forwards, backwards. The backrest can go forwards, backwards. You can lift the base of the seat. You also have a lumbar adjustment. How comfortable are the seats? Well, this is one of the things I like about the BT-50 and the D-Max. Seats are incredibly comfortable. If you're doing a long distance drive, they're just very nice and relaxing and they hug you in nicely. And then in terms of the steering wheel, has both tilt and reach adjustment. And on our reach test, all of this stuff is easy to reach while you're driving. Now, second row, before I hop in, let me run you through some of the configuration items here. So you can pull this seat up. It's got a little clip there so you can leave that clipped up if you do want to load anything sideways through here. You've got some additional storage beneath the cargo floor there. And then over on the other side, as I drape myself over this, you've got more storage under there as well. And then finally, you can get rid of this. This exposes the jack over there and also your two top tether points as well. So you are pretty covered there. Use our grab handle to get in. So I have the seat in my standard driver's position. You can see here that I have a decent amount of knee room. Toe room isn't great, but headroom is pretty good. Look, if you were actually back here for a longer distance drive, it wouldn't be too bad. It's quite a comfortable place to be seated. Grab handle up the top there. You've got a hook here for your shopping. Map pockets in the back of the seats, one USB port here. It's a charging port, so 2.1 amps. You also have air vents there as well. Got a center armrest here with two cup holders. Then you've also got ISOFIX points on the two outboard seats. And finally, our window test. Oh yeah, it goes all the way down and no auto up or down. We've just hit the road in the BT-50. Now this is powered by the same engine that's in the D-Max. So it's a 3-litre turbocharged 4-cylinder diesel engine. Makes 140 kilowatts of power and 450 newton meters of torque. We actually recently drove the 1.9-litre version of this. You can click up here to watch that review. This just feels chalk and cheese in comparison. While the torque outputs are kind of similar, this, once you get stuck into it, really sort of pushes you in the back. And in my mind, I think there's actually more torque in this than is actually on paper, because it is pretty quick once you sort of nail the throttle off the line with a bit of boost built up. And that's all mated to a 6-speed automatic transmission. Behind the wheel, like I said before, it just really gives you a nice punch in the back. It feels very confidence inspiring. And I think if you did strap this to a chassis dyno, this would really be reading more closer to that 500 Newton meter mark. It does feel a lot more sprightly than the numbers suggest. So how does that fare in terms of fuel economy? So Mazda claims a combined figure of 8 litres per 100 Ks. If we go through here to our fuel economy reading, we're currently sitting on 9.3. So a little higher than the official claim, but kind of close enough. Now, we don't have an official 0 to 100 time, but we've put it up against our stopwatch, and this is how it went. Now let's talk about the ride. So we've driven D-Max and BT-50 before, and in general the ride isn't too bad. This car though has a special suspension setup, and it's an aftermarket kit that was designed by ARB, and they've basically done the tuning work on it so that it suits this car specifically, and it works with all the car's safety systems. So the suspension kit they've fitted to this increases ride height by 20 millimeters, but in addition to that, it still allows all of your self-leveling headlights, all the stability control systems to work as intended, and it means that you're not going to disrupt any of those systems. And they offer it in 2 different specifications. There's 0 to 300 kilos and 300 to 600. So depending on how much load you're typically carrying, you'll pick one of those options. When you do have that fitted, it's designed to make the ride comfortable when you are within that weight band. Then in addition to that, it's all fully adjustable for compression and damping as well. Now it's good news for people who are using these as work utes, because if you are regularly carrying a load in here, you don't have to compromise in terms of comfort. And then it also means you can customize the comfort if you do get rid of that load and you go on an extended drive. So pretty cool setup. Part of the changes are complete adjustment to the suspension. There's an extra leaf there in terms of the leaf springs. It's gone from 3 to 4. So that's also helped with just leveling everything out and making it a whole lot more comfortable. And I've got to tell you, it is such a refreshing thing to see an aftermarket suspension setup that doesn't completely ruin the ride. It means that you can attack some of these terrible country roads where you've got all sorts of muck off the side of the road if you need to get out of the way for somebody, and it's not going to throw the car around. Deals really well with corrugations and all the stuff that you see when roads wash away. So really nice setup, and I think that yes, $6,000 is a lot of money, but at the end of the day, if you really want to nail that ride and have the ability to customize it for yourself, this setup actually does a really good job. Let's talk about steering feel quickly. Look, it's an electrically assisted steering rack. It's very light, so all of your inputs are very sort of darty in that sense. They have, as I mentioned earlier, enabled you now to push and hold this button to disable the lane keeping assistant, which is great because it was quite intrusive and just a little bit annoying, to be honest. So it's good to see that there. And it also doesn't really work with towing, so you're able to get that all switched off as required. Now, we don't have any drive modes, so to speak, so let's just dial up the speed here, pop it through our corner and see what it feels like. Yeah, look, it feels good. I mean, it's nothing too special. This suspension isn't really designed for performance, so it's not going to hold the ride dead flat, but it does really nicely smooth it out, especially on these choppier sections of road where we'd normally be thrown about at highway speeds. What about your visibility? So down the front there, it's easy to see the corners of the car. The wing mirrors are really big as well, and you've got that blind spot monitor built into those. Visibility out the back is good too. That envelope is nice and big. And then in and around the city, it's actually not too hard to park thanks to those front and rear parking sensors and a decent quality reverse view camera. Let's do a little bit of light off-roading. We'll see if this suspension has actually helped it at all here on our little off-road course. Now, in terms of the four-wheel drive specifications on the BT-50, it has a 240mm ground clearance, an approach angle of 30.4 degrees, and a departure angle of 24.2 degrees. Now, they're the angles that you can approach and depart the car without hitting anything on your way. You've also got a wading depth of 800mm, plus this has the snorkel, so it's going to give you better breathing ability if you do decide to go do a little bit of wading. Now, let's talk about the rest of your four-wheel drive controls. This is just two-wheel drive high range most of the time, so that's on sealed surfaces like roads. You can then switch to four high on unsealed surfaces. There's also a low range transfer case as well. Now, keep in mind, depending on what type of surface you're on, you don't want to be using some of these modes, and if you don't know exactly what I mean by that, click up here to watch a video we shot before on four-wheel drive controls where I run through that with some examples. You also have a rear diff lock and hill descent control. The rear diff lock only works in low range, so don't bother clicking that unless you are in low range. So let's give this a shot. So we have a minor change here to our logs. Instead of just driving up it now, especially now when it's dry, I'm resting the car, actually I better put it in four-wheel drive first. I'm resting the car on a little ledge of the logs here. Now the advantage of that is when it does come to a rest, the car's gonna have to figure out for itself how it gets up here in terms of traction controls. So there it is, just there. So I'll rest the car and I will now just get onto the throttle. All I've got is four high on and we'll see what it does. There we go, we got up there. So that was good. No dramas there at all. And nice and smooth as well. Normally the D-Max and the BT-50 are a little bouncy on the way up there, but this suspension just has smoothed that out nicely. Pop our hill descent control on. All right, here we go. See what that feels like. It's a little quick for my liking. Yeah, it's way too quick. It's just ploughing down here, and I think if this was all exposed, it's not too exposed at the moment, we might sort of whack some stuff on the way down. So yeah, the hill descent control could be just a little smoother and slower on the way down there. Next up, we've got our seesaw in the offset mogul. So I'll throw the car up on its side here, angle of about 25 degrees. The wipers come on. Now the offset mogul, this will be a good test to see how this copes with having a wheel entirely off the ground and how the traction control works with it all. What we'll do, actually, I'll pop this in two-wheel drive just for our first run through here, just to see how it goes and whether it is able to sort itself out on its own. We've got a wheel off the ground there. It's actually not doing a bad job. The traction control is biting. There we go, it got us through. That's actually pretty impressive. I think last time we came through here, it really struggled there. So I don't know if that's because our suspension is giving us a bit more wheel articulation, but it just cruised through there. So let's give that one more try. This time I'll leave it in four-wheel drive, high range. This time around, we're in four-wheel drive, high range. Let's see how it copes with that same scenario now with that wheel off the ground. There it is there, it's off the ground. Let's roll into the throttle. Yeah, it's not too bad. I can feel it sending torque to the front axle to get us through there. So, yeah, look, pretty impressed with that. This feels to me, and look, I'm obviously using my memory, but this feels to me like it performs better off-road than the last D-Max and BT-50 that we drove. And I am genuinely wondering whether it is the articulation that's helping us there. So I'm going to put an overlay on the screen right now for you to see the articulation difference between a standard D-Max / BT-50 and this version here with the aftermarket suspension. So the BT-50 SP, I tell you what, I like what Mazda has done with this in terms of all the blackout stuff. I think it takes away from the chrominess of the other BT-50 range, and it kind of gives it a bit more of an aggressive look. The interior looks nice and high-end as well. But I think what really sells it for me is the suspension. I really wasn't expecting the aftermarket stuff to be so good. It seemed to help it off-road. I have no sort of real science behind that, but it just felt a whole lot more capable off-road than a standard BT-50 does with its standard suspension setup. Rode better as well, and it just felt far more confidence-inspiring. So yes, it is $6,000. It's a fair bit of money, but at the end of the day, I think it's money well spent. And if it's this that you're going to be spending a lot of time in behind the wheel, you may as well just go for the decent suspension setup. So what about the downsides? Look, there really aren't too many downsides. The infotainment system is good, but it's just a little bit clumsy sometimes. Would love to see wireless phone charging. Can get that as an accessory if you need to. But look, outside of that, I think it's a really competent vehicle. It's one of the few vehicles that you can actually get at the moment. There aren't huge waiting lists. So let me know what you reckon in the comments section below. Did you buy one of these, and did you get that optional suspension setup? Let me know what it's like longer term. Let me know what it's like to adjust it, because it sounds great that it's adjustable, but I don't know how much of a pain in the arse that is. So let me know in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure you share it with your mates. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to our channel, press the bell icon. But until next time, take it easy.